welcome to the Kingdom of Bahrain. It is the 8th and final race of the 2024 FIA World Endurance Championship. And as ever, everything is up for grabs. Last time out, when we were in Fuji in Japan, the GT3 Championship was decided for the very first time. Manthai Pure Racing came out as champions, and their trio of drivers, Alex Malikin, Joel Sturm and Klaus Bachler, are also the drivers' champions. But the hypercar category is still as tightly contested as ever. Cadillac not in the hunt, but Sebastian Bourdais returns. He has been their third driver this season in the long races in Qatar, at Le Mans, and also here, although he wasn't in the number 2 car at Le Mans, he was in car number 3. But the battle is on, definitely, for this crew. Car number 6, Porsche's Penske team, or Penske's Porsche team, have been the dominant factor this season. They are looking to clinch manufacturers and drivers' titles ahead of their rivals from Ferrari and Toyota. And then we have the end of the first season for teams like BMW and Alpine, which have joined the championship. There's an awful lot to discuss, and luckily an awful lot of racing in the 8 Hours of Bahrain as well, that comes up not on Sunday but on Saturday this weekend, so tomorrow. Before we do that, we have to qualify this afternoon, and before we do that, your first chance to see cars on track as we get into the action in the third and final free practice session. Well, after all of that, welcome everybody. My name is Martin Haven, joined in the booth as ever by world champion Anthony Davidson and sports car guru Graham Goodwin. And Graham, the list of talking points that we've got this weekend is longer than your list of whinges about your cough.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's an 8-hour race, and there's still not going to be enough time for us to go through everything there is to discuss. Some titles, of course, fixed last time out for us last time.
Well, let's take a look at the Bahrain circuit, and who better to do so than Anthony Davidson.
Yeah, it's great to be back here in Bahrain. Circuit that I've always enjoyed driving on, and so we're going to take a look at some of the few key corners around this circuit. This 5.4 kilometre clockwise track. Starting off at turn 1, the pit lane feeds its way into this very tight right-hand corner, a great place for overtaking come race day, and an important one to get right on the brakes in qualifying later today. Turn 4, next up here, is a new gravel trap being added on the exit of that corner. Going to be an interesting one to keep an eye for how the cars handle that one. Always been notorious for track limits. And then this double left-hander from turn 9 into turn 10, very, very tight at the apex there into 10. You often see a lot of lockups there, lots of mistakes can be made in that corner, and another one that sets you up nicely for a potential overtake into turn 11.
Final sector of the track from turn 13 down to turn 16, another good overtaking opportunity, and like some of the major braking areas here, that one is downhill as well. So what about our headline championship then, the hypercars? Kevin Escher, Andre Lotterer and Laurens Vanthoor will not race together next year. We've already had news from Porsche that the Penske team next year will run 2 cars with just a pair of drivers for the regular season, with the third driver being added in for the Enduros. So that will be Le Mans, of course, the 8 Hours of Bahrain and the 10-hour season opener in Qatar. And that means there is no seat for Andre Lotterer. Now, Andre has the opportunity here today, Graham, or tomorrow, let's make it slightly more accurate, to become only the second driver after Brendan Hartley to win an FIA World Endurance Championship with 2 different manufacturers. And like Hartley, one of them would be Porsche.
And he could indeed help them to secure that manufacturers' championship, which is far more open at the moment than the drivers' championship in points terms. Also would get his opportunity to bookend his career so far in the WEC with world championships in 2012, of course, with Audi, and now here in 2024 with Porsche Penske Motorsport. Well, whatever happens next for Andre, and watch this space, because I think there's some exciting stuff to come. What a servant he's been to this championship.
Absolutely. I don't suppose he's going anywhere. We just saw a quick brief glimpse of the Iron Dames Lamborghini. Now, the Iron Dames rounded out the GTE championship saga with victory here last year in GTE and the last ever GT3 race. They're hunting for a win this season. They've been a little bit less fortunate than even somebody who's kicked a lot of cats and broken a lot of mirrors, I think. So they've had a pretty tough time in terms of results, although they have produced pace. BMW have had a win this season. Porsche have had a number of wins with both of the Manthey Porsche teams. But for a lot of our newcomers, and GT3 as a category is brand new this season, Graham, it has been a really big uphill learning experience. And that's been the case as well for Goodyear. They were with us over the last few years supplying tyres in LMP2. So GT3, a very different category where there's a wide variety of differing cars. And yet their tyre choice seems actually to have worked really well. They've brought one tyre to each of the races this year, and those tyres all seem to have worked well on all the cars.
They do. There is another option for Goodyear coming for next season, but for a lot of these teams, it's about unlocking the code, not just of these GT3 cars, the increased variety that's come with them, but also the fact that this too is an energy management formula, and that's been a key part of the change here in the FIA World Endurance Championship. Now in both classes, it has been the case, of course, from the start of the hypercar era, but now with LMGT3, with these cars, with the torque sensors measuring the energy going through that drivetrain, it's been something that's taken time for some of these teams, these manufacturers, these drivers, and remember all these cars, Pro-Am crews, to get their heads around. In hypercar though, the story on tyres and Davidson is somewhat more complex.
Yeah, so Michelin do have 3 compounds, but it's only 2 that they bring here. It's 3 compounds in Le Mans. The 2 compounds we'll be seeing here are the medium and the hard tyres, so the yellow and the red. Hopefully we won't be seeing, I think there's a very, very slim chance in these parts of the world that we'll be seeing the intermediate or the wet tyre for this circuit this time around as we stare into the cockpit back at Sébastien Bourdais. I've been teammates with him in the past. Phenomenal driver. We're hearing from Louise down in the pit lane that he's on medium tyres to start this session. No, he's not. He's on the hard tyres.
Well, let's hear from the pit lane because we have the once familiar voice of Louise Beckett. Louise, welcome back. Nice to have you around in Bahrain.
Very much. Yeah, I'm just making my way down the pit lane, which is a fond memory. It's been a while since Le Mans. And I can see the 83 AF Corsa is on mediums. And not many others in the hypercar category.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because the soft tyre has had a very good life across pretty much everywhere we've been. Now, the one thing that we do know about this circuit here in Bahrain is that the aggregate that it was built with, the solid stuff that's in the tarmac, if you like, the grains rather than the goo, technical term there, everybody, is very abrasive. So this is a low grip circuit, but high in tyre degradation. So maybe that's why we're seeing some teams looking at the option of
1
hard
minute,
tyre.
under 1 minute to start FP3. I hope you can all read us loud and clear. Track is clean, track is dry, session starts on time. Usual request to the drivers to keep it between the 2 white lines. And we are ready to go. Do not forget to turn on Discord so that you can communicate with us.
Well, that was a message, obviously, from the pit lane, from Eduardo Freitas. Let's hear from
30
Toyota.
Seconds, under 30 seconds.
Regards to the conditions at the moment, we have similar track temp to FP1. So actually a little bit lower than when you drove in FP1. So the same as FP1 start at 37. And the headwind into turn 1 is quite strong. It's between 16 and 20 kph, which is, I think, the strongest we've had so far.
Pit exit is now open. FP3 has started.
Anthony anticipating Eduardo's final moments there perfectly. So the final free practice session before the race gets underway. Free practice 1, 45 minutes, I beg your pardon, 90 minutes. Free practice 2, 90 minutes. This is just a 60-minute session. And Anthony, there's 2 things going on here, presumably for most of the teams. Obviously, you've got to get the car set up for Sunday, but qualifying comes up this afternoon, and that's the 800-pound gorilla in the
at turn 1 for car number 5. And, I think we might see a replay of this. Here we go, look at that. So even in these hot conditions that we have here, you're sitting there, no tyre blankets of course, in WEC anymore. So yeah, it's easy to spin one of these cars around as we've just seen. But yeah, speaking of, we heard from the engineer speaking to, was it Conway? No, it's to Hartley, saying about the wind direction. It's picked up. I felt that actually on the way in today. A big headwind for them heading down towards turn 1, and what that's going to do, you know, it affects the cars quite heavily, gives you more downforce effectively as you head towards a headwind. It's as if your car speed is higher because the wind speed's higher over your car as you head into that. So it gives you better braking into turn 1. So it's good news for the drivers, but also it's good news for us as fans, as commentators, because we can potentially see a bit more overtaking if it stays like that for the rest of the weekend, because you're going slower in terms of car speed. So wind speed's up, but car speed's down. So it means you're traveling down the straight for a longer time. It means that the car behind you gets a better slipstream, and yeah, for racing, it opens up an opportunity for a bit more overtaking into turn 1. You can really see the trees in the background getting blown around.
So final free practice session, and a combination of refining their tyre choices and their race setup and getting themselves ready for qualifying. Graham, what's been happening so far? Yesterday, 2 long track sessions. What do we take from that?
Of course, and what we had was Peugeot leading the first session with the number 94 car. Ahead of the number 5 car, we saw Fred Mako have that quick half spin in. But then Peugeot plummeting to the back of the field in the later session that finished in full darkness. It was the BMW number 15 that led that session, but that's all about the way in which they're managing tyres across these free practice sessions, and Peugeot telling us very clearly they were using used tyres in the second session, presumably to see what they could get out of those tyres, and the answer was not nearly as much.
Well, they did use used tyres for quite a lot of FP2. They gave the tyres quite a hard time during FP1, and they, like you say, they topped the timesheets there. But they did put new tyres on in FP2 at some point, and car 94 deciding to put brand new rear hard tyres on, left the fronts old from FP1. Car number 93 put a left side of brand new hard tyres and ran that through to the end of FP2 and kept the right hand side old. So yeah, it doesn't fully explain why they were right down at the bottom of the timesheets, because others out there didn't even put new tyres on at all. The Lamborghini, car number 36, the Alpine, they were on mediums the whole way through from start to finish of FP2. So yeah, it doesn't quite tie in with why they were right at the bottom.
Although they may well have been down there because they were trying the hard tyre. Now, Michelin have been surprised all the way through the season at how the soft tyre has worked, the medium tyre rather, has worked into territory they were expecting with the soft tyres, and also into territory they're expecting people to need a hard tyre. Ferrari seem to be very good on their medium tyre usage as well. Now, Bruce Giuani is in the pit lane as well. He's got a little bit more about Peugeot yesterday.
Yeah, I just spoke to Peugeot, hearing you guys talking about it, and basically yesterday they were just trying to find a right setup for the race, just working on a race setup that's not going to be too hard on the tires and not focusing on a pure performance for qualifying.
Now, the last time we raced in the desert in Qatar, the car didn't look like this, did it, Graham? But
no,
it very nearly produced a big result.
But it was extremely competitive at Qatar at the start of the year. Then we've got this new 2024 car that Peugeot have been working throughout the year to unlock the code effectively of this, and it seems to be coming. It's been slow progress for them, frustrating progress for them, but they're sticking with the plan, getting closer and closer, and last time out, actually we saw a little bit more of what the potential of this car is.
And we're seeing a lot of that from teams that are learning their cars, and the Porsche Penske Motorsport team are absolutely the classic example of that. Last year they struggled just about everywhere to unlock the potential of that car. This year, oh boy, night and day. So teams like Alpine that we've seen progressively improving, teams like BMW who have produced that performance, they've got to take encouragement from that.
I think they do, and I think, you know, we are in a real world now talking about BMW and Alpine challenging for podium positions at a minimum. The change, the step for Porsche came at Fuji last year when they led for so long after a banzai move into the first turn from Lawrence Vanteur, the leading car. Since then, they've carried that momentum through, and I think that's what we're going to see with Alpine and with BMW having made that progress.
And certainly a team like Penske, Anthony, you would expect never to be on the back foot forever. They are just too good at what they do, racing cars, for too long to be struggling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the competition now in WEC is the strongest I've ever seen. So you would expect a team like Penske to really lead the way as well in their professionalism, the way they approach motorsport across the globe. Here we are riding with, momentarily with Andrew Lotterer at the wheel of car number 96, car number 6, the championship leaders, and what a season they've had so far. Just I've got my tyre app in front of me here, just seeing where car number 6 is with that. They're on old tyres at the moment, old hard tyres, 16 laps on the left side. Oh, 16 laps all round. So yeah, relatively fresh hard tyres compared to that of Kamui Kobayashi, who were on board with before. Also on the hard tyre is Kamui, but he's got 6-lap-old left-hand tyres, 38-lap-old right-hand tyres.
Interesting couple of moments to the top of the times, just edging out an effort from FIA, the 83F Corsa car. Coach Jean-Eric Verne in the number 93 Peugeot, a 1:49.443, fastest time of the session so far, but team manager of that car being called to race control immediately.
Well, looking there at the Peugeot, of course, not the only French team on the grid. Alpine have been really impressive in the last 2 or 3 races. Brazil, they look strong. Texas, they look strong. Japan, they look strong. There have been a few lineup changes. Nico Lapierre bid goodbye, hung up his helmet in Japan, and is now effectively team manager there, as well as being a team manager for another team, Cool Racing, in the European Le Mans Series.
Which will continue, by the way.
Which will continue, which is really good news, because they don't want to lose him either. And so Charles Milesi has now moved into the 36 Alpine car to take Nico Lapierre's seat, and that means that back, having replaced Charles Milesi in 2 races where Milesi couldn't race, is Jules Gounon, but Gounon is too tall to go into the seat in the 36 car, so he's in with the other lanky guys, Ferdy Habsburg in the 35 car at the moment. So Jean-Marc Gounon pounding the Gounon swear jar. Jules Gounon is in this team, and actually he'll have done nearly half the season now, and I wonder whether they are looking at potentially adding him to the lineup full-time for next year. He obviously races in other championships as well, but he's certainly shown pace in this car.
Well, we're into the silly season now, and we're beginning to start to get some driver news. You've already talked about Andre Lotterer stepping away from the factory Porsche team. Fred Magovicki, another name that will be not part of that effort into next year. Some changes there at Alpine and other changes to come. When we get a shot of the 83 car, we've had one of those already confirmed, with a driver moving over from his team Cota this year to AF Corse and Ferrari next year, with Phil Hansen in the 83.
Quick roundup on the Alpine thoughts with Bruce Ioanni.
Yeah, I'm down there in the garage at the moment, right next to Nico Lapierre, who's busy actually looking at the strategy of which driver is going to be when into the car. So a complete new role for him, and I'm sure he's going to be adding some extra performance, even sitting now outside of the car.
Yeah, you have to think so, don't you? And again, we're looking here in the Porsche garage. Timo Bernhardt, you know, another old friend of the championship, another friend of the championship. I'll stop using the word old again. But with that knowledge, and again with Lotterer, even when he at some stage decides, okay, I don't want to be a driver anymore. I do want to be a driver, but you know, time's against me or whatever. You don't want to lose that knowledge. You don't want to lose that knowledge, and so keep it in. And it's interesting, you know, that Lapierre has been warmly embraced by that team. He's had a lot of time winning races with Philippe Signot. A lot of emotion goes into that relationship, and it is Signot who has created this Alpine team and made it happen, and so he stays there. Well, just saw a big lock-up from the BMW. Was it the 20 car that came in? Robin Freins was at the wheel of that car. But again, a car that, I mean, even right from Imola, produced pace when they weren't necessarily expecting it to. They had lots of problems with the car in pre-season testing, but it had raced in the US. And it does seem that the European arm now, Team WRT, are really getting on top of that BMW hypercar.
Yep, so a quick shot on board then. Watching the number 85 Iron Dames Lamborghini, Michelle Gatting, their gold-ranked driver at the wheel of the Lamborghini. There's one word that comes to mind about this effort this year, and that's luck. And it has been dire for the all-female driving squad for the Iron Dames this year. Expect to see some pretty major changes moving forward for this effort. Rahel Fry there and Sarah Bovey in the background. Not going to make their announcements for them, but lots of really good stuff to come from what has been a groundbreaking programme here in the World Endurance Championship and elsewhere. And then you've got the 55 car, Francois Aurelio, pole-setting pace from him, but then the other car, the 54 car, breaking the bogey, if you like, of no wins or no podiums for Ferrari at all this season. Let's go down though to pit lane.
Robin Freins, you've just gotten out of the number 20 BMW. You're here with, they've teamed up with WRT for the first hypercar year in WEC. How have you found that as we're going into our last race of the season?
Well, it's always nice to drive a hypercar with BMW. I've been with WRT for the last 3 years in LMP2, so to have that step up is always nice. It's always one of those dreams. At the beginning of the season, we coming in as a new car, and we needed to learn a lot, as us drivers, as us team as well. But we improved a lot. I think going to Austin, we made a big step. We were fighting at the front end, basically for the first time. At Fuji, we had our first podium. So we made steps every single weekend. We showed some good potential. So now, this is the last weekend. I mean, we're not fighting for the championship. We're just here to prep for the next race, basically in Qatar again, and hopefully have a good one there.
Looking positive ahead. Thank you.
I think it's been a really positive story. Le Mans winner in LMP2, of course, lest we forget, with WRT when they were starting to learn their world endurance trade. And again, you know, you talk about Penske, WRT are the same sort of team where you expect them. You don't just hope that they're going to do well, you expect them to do well, Anthony. They've got so much engineering prowess, and to take on a hypercar program shows that they don't lack ambition either.
Yes, a team like Cota as well, you know, who I drove for in LMP2, and we were always fighting. It seemed the WRT team, an absolute world leader when it comes to how to prepare a racing car and how to go about racing as a team. Yeah, phenomenal team, and obviously running the BMW we see on the screen here as well in the LMGT3 category. So yeah, there's been a really strong season for WRT and BMW, and I've enjoyed watching their progress as well through the season. Their speed has been ramping up in both classes, but mostly in the hypercar category. So I do feel like a win is just around the corner for them.
Yeah, it can't be far away. Let's touch back with Bruce Ioanni. We were just talking about the Iron Dames and their season. And Bruce, you've been chatting to Sarah Bovey.
Yeah, she came to me and she said there's going to be a lot of trouble this weekend because of degradation. She said it's not only slower, it becomes undrivable. That was her words. So she says the race is going to be super exciting, but also really hard to manage.
All right, I mean, degradation, Anthony, is... Tyre deg is going to be such a big story here, and you've just got to jeopardise all your pace, potentially, I think, for tyre life.
It affects all categories. It's just this, you touched on it earlier on, Martin. The surface here is the same original surface since this track was created back in 2004. So yeah, a 20-year-old track surface now, as the bitumen has worn down and the stones then protrude. And it just tears up the tyres. Doesn't matter which category you're in, which tyre compound or manufacturer you're using, it's going to do the same. You're going to have the same end result. And for a driver, you really feel the benefits of a new tyre around here, potentially more than most other circuits. and it's a delicate process around here. And when you're behind the wheels, you can see there on the way into the Corvette, down towards turn 9 and 10. Delicate process. You don't want to. You have to babysit the tyres, really nurse them, and not scratch them across the surface too much, because it's effectively like a big coarse bit of sandpaper. Imagine taking a rubber and eraser on a bit of sandpaper and rub it around. It's not going to last very long, and it's not going to be very grippy. And that's exactly what's going on with their tyres on this track surface. And I like it because it's unique. It's not normal that you see circuits left like this for so long, so many years, that creates this.
Bruce?
Yeah, well, hearing you guys talking about it, it's quite funny because Cota is trying something which is interesting. They've had hards all around, but now they've got hards on the front and mediums on the rear, and I think that shows that the tire deck is even worse on the front tire, especially with the last set of corners, which are long right-handers, which is really hard on the front left tire. I don't know if you would agree on that, Anthony.
Yeah, the first sector as well, when you're coming in at really high speed, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, very tight, lots of rotation of the car, really scrubbing the front. And then you've got 9 and 10, downhill, corkscrewing, tightening, hairpin. I mean, it's been designed to destroy tyres, even if the surface was kind.
Yeah, it's like Bruce was saying, you know, it is a circuit that it really makes you think from behind the wheel. It's a lot of drivers, I think, they don't like this track, because it lacks the kind of roll your sleeves up element, get stuck into the high-speed corners and have a lot of fun. It's like I say, it is a delicate process. It's a lot to do with on the brakes, rolling the car under the brakes into the corners like we just saw there with Kimura-san into the final corner. I always call it the final corner. I know it's not really, it's turn 14. There are 15 corners, but turn 15 you're accelerating your way through. And then you run down this main straight towards turn 1, where again you've got this heavy braking zone, and you can't afford to hustle the car too much. You have to feed it in, don't excite it in any way, don't surprise the car basically around this track. Turn 6 and 7, there's a right-left chicane, things speed up a little bit more, and it does dip down the hill, but there aren't any, what I would class as truly high-speed corners around this track.
Now there speaks a man who was renowned in his driving career for being silky smooth. And that's why he likes this place, because it responds to your driver skills. But that's the point of it. But Anthony, you're the man who spends half his Formula One life ranting about gravel traps and how they will eliminate all the decisions about track limits and all the arguments, and you've got what you wanted here at turn 4.
It's amazing. I mean, someone out there, someone has listened and acted on it. I mean, it's a cost to the circuits, of course, to get modifying them, and they're always playing catch up with what drivers want, what different categories of forms of motorsport want. You know, motorbikes, for example, they hate gravel traps. It's not nice, I guess, to go through. I've never ridden one, but to go through a gravel trap on a motorbike, yeah, I can see why they don't like it. But they've done it here in turn 4, and hopefully it will have an impact in terms of the track limits, which we don't like talking about. We don't like seeing drivers having their laptops deleted and throwing it to the stewards to make that decision. We want to see it self-policed.
Yeah, and the deal with even a thin strip of gravel is that you lose so much traction there, it does prejudice the driver's lap time.
Well, I did also already see, I think it was Lotterer kicking up just a little puff of smoke on the exit of turn 4. So there's a driver taking it right to the limit, not going over the white lines, and just literally feeling the edge of the track, because that is what you're driving up to. And it's easier to look to the outside of the track rather than looking to the inside as you go over a white line. Looking back here in the Lamborghini, as Mortara gets behind the wheel, we saw Danny Kvyat out there earlier on, who put in, I must say, a really competitive lap time up there. Many of you might have seen already in P3, and it's a genuine lap time from what I can see. On the medium tyre, they're the yellow sidewall tyres that Mortara takes over, and the cars in front of him were all on brand new mediums as well for this, and behind him, I must say. So yeah, really good effort by Kvyat. And here's some sliding around turn 13, which is very common to see.
That's why he brought them in to hand over to Edo.
There you go.
Graham, would you agree that from the beginning, it looks like the Lamborghini has had the pace, it just can't sustain it? And that's an issue that we saw, I think, almost all of last year with Porsche, and the new cars have that. They are all quick. It's learning how to keep the speed in the car and in the tyres, maybe.
It's development, it's understanding the package. It's very easy to look at the Lamborghini first season in Hypercar and be underwhelmed by it, but then look at the detail. They finished in the top 10 in Lamborghini's first ever top class start at the Le Mans 24 Hours. That is not an easy thing to do. So there's real strength in depth in the package and in the team that's running these cars. Yet to be seen what the future is going to be moving forward with this package, with WEC, with the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, where you also see the SC63. But there's some good bones in that car, no doubt whatsoever about it.
You touched a little earlier on the driver lineup changes that we already know about for this car next year. This car will return. Whether it will be yellow or not remains to be seen, but it will be run by AF Corsa, the privateer Ferrari 499 Hypercar. Yeyeve will stay with the team, and Robert Schwartzman is heading off to IndyCar, and he will be, well, Phil Hansen will join the lineup. I won't say be replaced by, but Phil Hansen will move from Cota to AF Corsa, and we're waiting to see who the third driver is. It's unlikely, I think, that Robert Kubica will find a better drive elsewhere, but the market is an open one, so who knows?
Well, it's an interesting one. Prior to Le Mans, visited Maranello and asked them some pretty in-depth questions. At that point, in June of this year, they were talking about wanting to keep that entire lineup together. They've not managed to do that. Robert Schwartzman, you're quite right, is heading for IndyCars. We see the number 50 car getting some really significant attention in the garage there. So he'll head to IndyCar, and indeed confirmed by Ferrari this morning that will end his relationship with the brand.
Okay. Well, yeah, they don't have an IndyCar team. Enzo did once threaten one, but that was a bargaining tool. It looked as though front suspension was being adjusted there on the 50 Ferrari. So not great news midway through a race weekend. Looking here at Josh Cahill and the United Autosport McLaren team, like so many in LMGT3, new to the championship as a team, certainly in this category, but also new to the car. And that's been a big factor. It's, okay, GT3 McLaren 720Ss have existed, but they're in a slightly different format here in LMGT3, and the team have to learn the tracks. Perhaps unsurprising that the brand that was most, or the two brands that are most up to speed are Porsche and Ferrari, which have most knowledge of this series and of the environment. But everybody else has learned fast, and I think that's been one of the key takeaways for me from this season, is that everybody seems to have the performance, but it's that unlocking it and maintaining it thing that's the challenge.
We're on board here with Josh Cahill in the United Autosports McLaren. He's a great example of the progress that's been made here. Great stuff from both the bronze drivers at United. Let's not forget either that we have had a McLaren Hyperpole pole position this year, just not for United. It was the Inception car at the Le Mans 24 Hours set pole position. It's a great GT3 car, but this is a different challenge, a different formula, and it's a whole team game as we get more there. And what you seeing there?
Is that the steering rack?
No, I think it's the front heaps.
1 minute for full course yellow deployment. 1 minute for full course yellow deployment. With entry closed is on, drivers can ignore it.
So we are rehearsing full course yellow once more for our track workers here, because of course when you work at a circuit, your local circuit, various different championships that come have various different ways of dealing with largely driver-induced issues. Not too much is induced by stray
30
animals.
seconds to full course yellow.
Riding on board with Earl Bamber in the number 2 Cadillac. Last race for these cars.
20 seconds to full course yellow.
Run by Chip Ganassi Racing.
Full course yellow in less than 15 seconds. Full course yellow in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow, full course yellow.
Voice of our assistant sporting director Lisa Weishart, who is the right hand, left hand and left brain of Eduardo Freitas. I mean, Anthony, you've been into race control. There's a great little piece you did for the FIA website about how many plates she is spinning while juggling balls and keeping everything in the air. It's an astonishingly busy job.
You can find all of those on YouTube, by the way, along with the full access coverage that WEC cover over the weekend, and yeah, some great insight to all of the behind the scenes of this championship. And it is one of those championships where you can have such incredible access, as we could see in that Ferrari shot earlier on. It's by regulation you're not allowed, by the way, to have anyone covering the car at any time during the course of a free practice or any official session. But yeah, this with the FIA, you know, they're working tirelessly to try and keep everyone safe. You can see there, that's some of their work, the runoff area on the exit of turn 8, keeping the drivers and teams as safe as possible. But at the same time, the stewards looking at this, it's amazing. It was a great experience for me to be in that room, to see all of the monitors they have. You know, what we have in front of us here in the commentary box, we have a few screens, but they've got a multitude of screens, all the different onboard camera angles, CCTV shots as well. So they see way more than any fan or commentator could ever wish to see, along with all of the data, of course, from the cars. And they will look at the data here from the full course yellow as to who activated it at the right time, if anyone was over speeding, who deactivates it when you have the countdown, which I'm sure we'll hear later. And, you know, just basically it's there for safety first of all, but also to check that nobody's gaining an unfair advantage in these situations as we go green once again.
Well, seem to remember from your driving career, you were no stranger in the steward's room, surely.
I had my moments, but it's nice to see it from the other side. And actually, it's only when you retire and get to see it from their point of view, it starts to make more sense. I kind of wish that I was educated before, or at some point during my driving time. I think it's a good thing for all drivers to do, actually, to see what it's like on the other side for the stewards and race director.
Quick little view there of the seat change as the drivers change over here. Antonio Giovinazzi gets into the 51 Ferrari. Only Ferrari were able to double stint their drivers in Texas. And only Ferrari were able to double stint their drivers, not because they have aircon in the car, because they don't have aircon in the car, but because they have a special cooling seat system. And I was talking to the manufacturers of the seats a couple of evenings ago at the barbecue, and they've been trying to sell their seats to various other teams. After Texas, Porsche came to them and said, okay, now we need to talk. Having previously batted away, yeah, we don't need that, it's just a seat. And Anthony, a couple of things. First of all, touching on, I don't think young drivers are interested in listening to that. They just want to go quickly. You know, yeah, race control, whatever. Yeah, I'll deal with that later. I think you have to sort of be of a slightly more mature disposition to take that on board, and I think you are now than probably when you were an up-and-coming young thrusting driver. But driver comfort, getting back to something slightly more relevant, is absolutely crucial. Now, it's a brutal environment in the car, no matter how comfortable you try and make it, but you've got to keep your driver alive as much as your gearbox, your engine and your tyres. And I don't just mean alive, I mean actually functioning at his maximum.
Not literally alive.
Not literally.
Yeah. It's a good point that you raised, though. I think if there was a way, and I think motorsport's still got a hell of a long way to go in regards to this, if they could have access to the driver's health and well-being at any time, if they could tap into that, because they don't really see drivers like a component in the car. It's just a fleshy bit that sits in the middle and gets in the way of their lovely electronics and technology, and we're unpredictable, and they don't like that. They wish they could replace us with robots, with AI, whatever, but they can't, not yet anyway. So if they could tap into the human body and see what drivers are going through real time in the car, see if we're overheating, basically, see if you're depleted of energy or fluids and you're starting to lose concentration. I think they would think about it very differently and maybe design the cars in a different way. And you know, the only thing that the teams would ever tell a driver is that, well, you've got to train harder. But it's true. You can train really hard, but it comes to a certain point what the human body can take in terms of temperature at least. And yes, it's a really interesting point about Porsche approaching Ferrari or the seat manufacturer, say, okay, we saw a difference there in Austin. It was a hot day. We saw some drivers suffering. So one of the BMW
Marco
Wittmann really suffered during one of his stints, and it's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be that way.
And yet BMW are beating a path to their door going, we have an issue with this car, we have an issue with the temperature. You know, closed cockpit cars, you've driven both types, closed cockpit cars tend to be hot. Now, talking of which, we're just taking a look at our hypercar class. We talked a moment or two ago about the number 2 Cadillac, back to a 3-driver lineup this weekend, and delighted once more to have head of GM Racing, Laura Wanchop-Klauser in the booth with us. And Laura, kind of, the end of where did that come from? Good morning, how are you? How are you?
I'm great.
Great. Sorry, I'm now completely lost my
I'll chuck
thread.
it in. It's been a topsy-turvy season, it's fair to say, but there have been some massive highlights. Tell us a little bit about the latter part of this season, the progress that we've really clearly seen with this amazing race car years.
Yes, I'd say that, you know, it has been a challenge to, you know, continue to be the single car racing here in this series. However, what we've been able to pull in the moments of brilliance that you've seen throughout the season, whether it be qualifying, we got the pole in Japan, which was super exciting, or, you know, some of the race moments, we led Le Mans for a while, which was fantastic. Very proud of everything that everyone's achieved and what they've been up to. I know that the guys are very focused. They want to come out of this season with a nice high here at the end, and they're working very hard towards that. I heard you were mentioning how hot it is. It's hot. I feel for the drivers. They come out quite a shade of red that I'm not sure should be proper for them. But yeah, it's been one of those seasons that, you know, you will look back and you'll say, I'm so glad of all those moments that we picked up on things here and there, and as we put that jigsaw puzzle together, it'll bring us success.
And from this effectively single car toe in the water, all right, Le Mans had the fleet of cars and nearly pole there as well. For moments, Sebastian Bourdais nearly had a huge result. From a single car toe in the water, it's next year a 2-car lineup and a different team running the cars. So that's going to bring all sorts of dynamic changes, isn't it? And you know, you look at a team like Cota, what they've done with privateer Porsches, that obviously must have influenced that decision somewhere along the line.
Oh, for sure. It's we're very excited about, you know, what's to come for next year. I think increasing to 2 cars for sure will make a big difference, and the experience that Cota brings to the paddock, fantastic as well. But we do definitely thank all the work that CGR has put into an incredible 2 seasons and some really incredible moments too. So we're excited to finish out on a high note with them here, and look forward to see what they can do in the race.
Laura, well, for me, it is an increase of 1 car to 2 here in the WC, but it's an increase of cars to 3 for the full season in North America as well. When does the work start to ramp up to that commitment? When does that, because it's a huge, we talk about supply chain, we talk about the challenges that the modern world throws at motorsport, but that is not something that is weeks in the planning.
February of 2024.
There you go.
Yeah.
You have to put car orders in that early to get all the parts and the batteries and everything. It's long lead times, but you know, the good news is that these parts will get used, so we are able to make sure that we had ourselves supplied and ready to go. But it's a huge challenge for sure to make a big change like that, but the team has been working very hard at GM and Dallara to make it happen, so it can't wait to see the results.
We talked about right at the very beginning of this program, the first time you came into our booth in Spa 2 years ago, about how important it was for Cadillac to be on a global stage. And clearly that hasn't gone away. In fact, it's increased. So we're looking now at this rule set continuing to 2029. Do you see Cadillac looking that far ahead and going, we're in this for the long run?
For sure, I think it was a great move for them to extend the homologation period that allows us to get a little bit more out of our investment and to really work with this hardware, which is the most complicated race car that we've ever built. So, you know, the more that we work with it, the more we're figuring it out. And I think that goes across the board, not just for Cadillac. So that's great news that they've done that. And, you know, for sure, we're always evaluating what we want to do for the future. But definitely, right now, the focus is on 2025 because there's a lot of things to do.
Now, with your other hat on, we're also looking at the LMGT3 category, brand new category, and lots of question marks. At the end of the season, reviewing it, do you think there are now more answers than you expected? Do you think the Corvette is starting to be in a sweet window more often?
Well, I tell you, when you reflect back over the year for the Corvette GT3, some things I'd like to point out. We ended up winning the Michelin Endurance Cup for Chevrolet at IMSA. Our amateur driver, Ori Fadani, took home the Aikens Cup, so he will be able to have an invite to Le Mans for next year. DXDT tore it up over in the SRO North America Series, winning 8 races in a row and contending for the championship after they started late. I'd say that this has been a heck of a year so far. We are so excited. TF has shown us incredible moments here as well, and frankly, the past couple races, they've just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. So hopefully Lady Luck's a little bit more on our side for this race, because I think they can do some great things.
Shouldn't forget, by the way, the very first LMGT3 pole position went to that Corvette in Qatar. Not going to ask you to make any announcements on that front, but we know already we're going to see more of those Corvettes in more series and more championships in 2025 with more teams.
We are growing.
Really quiet. There you go.
We are growing.
I'm going to say thank you for this year, because it's been great to get insight from Laura throughout this year. This has been a learning year for all of us, and having some of the major figures from our manufacturers in this booth that we can ask these questions on behalf of our viewers has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you for the great 2024.
Thank you. Thank you all for telling the world our story and giving everyone something to watch and listen to.
Listen, when you have big hitting manufacturers, global brands that GM brings to the table who are doubling up on their investment, then it's always good news for us. Aha, this was an unplanned full course yellow. A little bit of advertising hoarding has got onto the track. So Laura Wantrop-Klauser, head of GM Racing. Yeah, great news that the program continues with the Corvettes in LMGT3 and increases with Cadillac as well in Hypercar. And of course, next year, Graham, we're looking forward to the arrival of yet another major global brand with Aston Martin confirmed. We've already seen pictures of the car testing, so that is going to be very interesting. Aston Martin's new designer signing leaves Red Bull in December, just in time to get his ducks in a row for Qatar.
You know, putting my journalistic hat on for a moment, genuinely, about 25 years I've been involved in sports car racing and reporting this. There has never been a more active, a more exciting, a more positive era in a quarter of a century, and there's so much more to come. So it's great to see the biggest car companies on the planet. GM is absolutely one of those, playing a very active role on multiple steps on that ladder.
It's becoming harder and harder to resist for anybody who's been looking from the outside in. We know that Hyundai are bringing their brands as well, and there's all sorts of stories. McLaren, it's still not a hard no. It's not a yet a yes, but it would be a surprise if they don't join. And there must be other major car manufacturers who are looking at this. Because you're right, we were talking about this at team dinner last night, talking with Fred, who we hear in our ears, but you don't hear, who's been involved in motorsport all his grown life, same as me pretty much. This is an honour, an absolute joy to be in World Endurance at this time. This is the greatest endurance racing period ever in history, and it looks like it's going to continue to grow. I mean, it's astonishing. Well, there's somebody who's seen a few races. Didn't recognise the face, but seen an awful lot of what's going on. Now, Peugeot fastest of all, of course, we're expecting that. AF Corsa's privateer yellow Ferrari second quickest. Lamborghini third ahead of the second of the Peugeots. Then the Alpines. One Ferrari still in the garage. That's the number 50 car. Still work going on there. So actually we could do with Bruce and Louise getting maybe a little bit of an update on that, because that car's not been out much. So a little bit of a jumbling of the order again, but we expect that. And we might get a little bit more of a clue of who's got what when we get into this afternoon's qualifying session. Before we move on, I will just give you some times. Qualifying, we will be on air at 15:45 local. That's 12:45 Greenwich Mean Time, 13:45 Central European Time, about 10 minutes before the session goes green. So wherever you are, you can convert that into your own time zones.
Still leading the session, by the way, it is still the number 93 Peugeot. Mikkel Jensen at the wheel, 1:49.443. So if it stays that way, it'll be 2 of the 3 sessions led by Peugeot. Leading LMGT3's times, it is our championship winning squad, number 92 Montai Pure Racing team. That's Bapco is at the wheel, 2:33.575. But second quickest is the number 78 car with a new driver for that team, Conrad Lausen, father and son competing in the European Le Mans Series to Ferrari, but Conrad stepping over here into a Cota ASP. They've led both sessions so far, and a second in this session. It's a big turnaround for the Lexus here, and it's been 1 session each for the 78 and the 87 car. So looks like there might be something to show here from the big banger Lexus. I'm going to do one other moment, which is a tradition here in WC TV land that we have a phrase we use very often. No, it's not that. Laura's not the head of GM Racing. She's their sports car racing lead. There's a black helicopter with General Motors written on the side of it, hovering above.
Now then, Nancy, let's talk tyres. What are Porsche doing at the moment with number 6 and number 5?
Yeah, well, they started this session on old, used set of hard tyres. You can see now they're onto the mediums there, the yellow banded sidewalls. So yeah, they where did they have on them at the beginning? Yeah, so 16 lap old tyres all round, with Lotterer at the wheel that time. So yeah, good to see them out on the mediums now, as many of pretty much all of the front runners up to 5th place at this point all had the medium tyres, brand new to start this session. We saw Elbama, didn't we? It looked to me like he was talking it through with the Cadillac team. From what I could read from his body language, he was complaining of understeer, huge understeer in that Cadillac. They've started this session as well on the red hard tyre, and they had done 6 laps at the beginning of the session already. So they did a 10-lap stint to start with, and then an 8-lap stint so far. That was with Bama, so he's now out of the car, Lynn back in.
Sean Gallale leading Valentino Rossi down the pit lane. The 2 BMWs nailed to the bottom of the times in LMGT3. Not necessarily sure that is their full race performance, and probably not their qualifying performance as well. Bruce Ioani in the pit lane with a little bit more for us. Bruce?
Yeah, I'm next to the United Autosport McLaren number 95. The car's been stopped for a while. They have nothing major, but a gear selector problem. Marino Sato at the wheel. Not sure the car will be out again before the end of the session.
All right, that's not great news. Nothing major unless you actually want gears in your car. Yeah, the 50 Ferrari as well. That looked like a major ground-up rebuild. Now, of course, that means they lose an hour effectively of track time, but also the clock is ticking, Graham, because qualifying is coming over the horizon. It's not immediate. We'll have time for lunch and stuff before then, as Valet gives a little bit of feedback there, but you don't want to be missing qualifying.
You most certainly don't. Only 7 laps completed, by the way, in this session from that number 50 car. To give you an idea, there's plenty of cars at 20 and some 21. So they're losing significant track time as well. One quick update, by the way, 2 5-minute stop and go penalties for full course yellow infringements in this session, and they're coming the way of the number 82 TF Sport Corvette and the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. So 2 of our front running cars in LMGT3 as Valet unveiled.
Yep. A man who the guys at Imola reckoned added 30% to the gate. So you got 2 big Italian brands here, Lamborghini and Ferrari. They went 3. And I'm going, oh yeah, Lamborghini GT3. No, Valentino. Valet had 8 merchandising stalls. The other manufacturers, the most any of them had, were 2. Now, Valentino, not a manufacturer, a brand, let's say, but definitely a fan favourite. And you will see that if you come to our races, not just lots of 46 caps and T-shirts and so on, but also the queues waiting to see the great man at close quarters in the autograph session are as big as for any other team put together. So he has been a very big draw. Back with Peugeot, it would be really encouraging. They've shown a lot of very encouraging signs, but haven't been able to quite keep the ball in the air the whole way through. A big race here to round out the season would be very, very good news.
It would, and also, by the way, to round out the Peugeot career of Nico Müller, who leaves the team at the end of this season, to be replaced by another mercurial talent coming in, Melter Jacobsen joining the team for 2025. You're talking about Valet, and what a big name he is, what the biggest in world sport, not just motorsport of any sort, but he's an early adopter. Pretty much everywhere we look, there are people talking about the opportunities that sit here for teams, for manufacturers, for drivers, and we are at the start of something even more special. More big names looking towards the FIA World Endurance Championship and to Le Mans for the opportunity to sample this extraordinary racing that we're seeing developing through this season.
And names like Ferrari in the championship, big brand names like Corvette and Aston Martin and so on coming as well, just draw eyes, and Valentino Rossi is one of those as well. Now, in Anthony's other and slightly less interesting world of Formula One, Toyota very recently announced a technical tie-up with Haas. Does that mean sweary team managers might be heading in Toyota's direction?
It's interesting to see that collaboration. I think what Toyota gained from it is a pathway now where their drivers, particularly their Japanese drivers, say like Ryo Hirakawa, for example, they've been with the team now with TMG for a few years. Le Mans winner, of course, world champion, and if you want to progress your career, if you want to get into single seaters as a Toyota driver, a young Japanese Toyota driver, you make that decision as a young driver. Do you go with Honda or Toyota? It's your two biggest choices you have. And what they've been seeing is, there's been, for a younger driver in Japan, is Honda has been more enticing because they're there leading the way in Formula 1, winning world championships. Their power unit. Look at Yuki Tsunoda. So I think Toyota will benefit by potentially having a bit of that. They want to give their drivers a pathway, from my understanding of getting all the way through to Formula 1. And they already have this great platform here in WEC as well. So I think it's just going to encourage more younger drivers to, when they're making that decision, you go with Toyota. And they have a different mindset as well to how a European driver would think, is that they're quite loyal to the brand. From what I saw, it wasn't like me. I drove for Honda and Toyota in my career. That's almost unthinkable and unheard of as a Japanese driver. You stay very loyal to the brand. So you make that decision and you follow that path. So I think that's what Toyota get from it. What Haas get from it is a state-of-the-art F1 factory capable of developing, state-of-the-art wind tunnel, 7-poster rig, all the stuff that comes with TMG. So I think that's what they're going to get.
Now, work still continues down at the Ferrari garage. Louise Beckett, what are the team telling you?
Yeah, the crew of the 50 Ferrari have been working on it since we saw it coming. You can see from the pictures they're definitely not going out this session. The way it was described to me was a cable in the engine, so I'm taking that as the wiring loom from the way that they have taken this 50 completely apart during this session.
Well, there you go. Electronics is the heart of the beast, isn't it? Nothing on your road car, unless you've got an old one like mine, or in your body works with that electrical impulse. And Anthony, a racing car is no different. Without the electronics working, you can't activate your systems, you can't monitor your systems. So a problem with the wiring loom is a massive problem because these things are built deep inside the car.
I wonder if when they say engine, whether they mean the front engine, i.e. the front motor, the electric motor, yeah. So, yeah, not when they're saying front engine, it's something maybe lost in translation. It's Louise is she's just confirming. Yeah, it's the motor. So the electric motor. So that explains why they're working so heavily on the front of the car. So yeah, electrics. and you know, with an electric motor, it either works or it doesn't. It's on or it's off. So it's got to be, it's an electrical issue. So hopefully they can turn that around for qualifying. But it's a really complex part of the car and hard to get to.
So that's the MGU, the motor generator unit. Effectively, it's an electric motor that when you're braking, it generates power from the motion of the wheels, but you can release that power back through to turn the wheels. Now, at the moment, you can place that in the front of the car, round the brake pedals ahead of the driver's feet and so on. And that's what happens with Formula One as well. But the 26 regulations for Formula One, the MGU, which is currently in an F1 car about the size of a coffee cup, is going out to about 4 times the size, about the size of a thermos flask, and that will have to be built in to the driver, into the tub, into the cell behind the driver and with the fuel cell. And then, if your MGU goes on the fritz, that's it. Now, if that's coming to Formula One, it may well be that in the next rule set, that sort of level of safety might have to come here. Why is the MGU with the fuel cell inside the tub? For protection in case of an accident, because the tub is the most resilient part of the car. And if that's happening in Formula One, you can imagine the next rule set of Hypercar and LMDH will look at that as well.
So when you're riding on board with Sebastian Buemi, you can just hear his engine under you as you're talking there, Martin. You hear that high-pitched whine under braking. That's the MGU-K. The MGU-K is the kinetic element of the motor doing its thing. It's recouping that energy on the braking, and then they'll use it on deployment when they're putting their foot down, and it's there working over 180 kilometers per hour. It can kick in, so they're not getting genuine four-wheel drive until they're over 180 kilometers per hour to stop the cars with a front motor having an advantage for four-wheel drive as soon as they put their foot down, compared to the other cars out there with a rear motor only that does its kinetic energy recovery from the rear motor. You wouldn't have four-wheel drive, so it's all part of that balance of technology between the cars.
And of course, Graham, as we know from Glickenhaus, there's Olivier Panis. We'll catch up with him later on this weekend, a team owner in European Le Mans Series. As we know from Glickenhaus, you don't have to have a hybrid at all. It doesn't have to drive the front or the rear. You don't have to bother.
In LMH, you don't, and that's exactly what you're going to be seeing next year with the Valkyrie. That's it's going to be doing. The reason Olivier Panis is here, by the way, not just because he's a part of the sports car racing family, because his son is going to be driving the Lexus in the rookie test on Sunday. That's the start of the next chapter for the FIA World Endurance Championship. We're sticking at the moment with the number 92 car, the Mansell Pure Racing car. Well, we should, because we should be reflecting already our championship winning car, the first LMGT3 championship to be awarded. What a year they've had.
The first GTE championship in my tenure of slender tenure of the headset that has not been decided in Bahrain.
I think that might be right. I think we've only ever had two championships ever decided early in the history of the FIWC in a major class. Story moving forward from Monty. I expect we're going to see some big changes in terms of the teams that they're going to be running next year. The story for Pure Racing from Lithuania, remember? Well, the start of that story may well have been told with the testing we saw at the end of the European Le Mans Series just a few days ago in Portimao, with Alex Malikin trying all day and putting in some great lap times in an LMP2 car. So again, that ladder of sports car racing is doing what it's designed to do, which is to push talent north.
And again, you know, when you're in this paddock and you've already won the championship at LMGT3, you're left with two options: either come back and do it again, or the ambition then is to go for the overall wins and to go into Hypercar. And we're going to see people like Valentino Rossi driving in the rookies test on Sunday, not because he's a rookie, but because he wants to try Hypercar. He's already tried LMP2, he wants to try Hypercar, and that clearly is his ambition, not just to race at Le Mans, but now to race at Le Mans in the top class.
Well, we've already got an entry list for the rookie test. There's already some very interesting names on that. There will be a revised rookie test list in the next 24 hours, and my guarantee is going to be even more interesting names on that list.
Well, if Olivier Panis is on it as well, then everybody else had better watch out, because I've seen him racing in ice racing against his son, and there is no quarter given. He has got pointier elbows than he did when he was in Formula One, and they were pretty pointy then. Don't forget that for this race weekend, as for the whole of the season last year and this, we have a secondary camera crew. I won't call them a secondary camera. We have an additional camera crew, not just shooting the live stuff, but actually shooting for our full access behind the scenes program. So full access will be out. The note Jason is holding up says around 12 days, could be 15, might be 10, could be who knows. We'll have to wait and see, but it gives you unrivaled access to the names and the faces, and particularly the character. If you haven't had yet enough of the French Porsche crew giggling in the back row of the garage, I'm sure there will be lots more of that fun content, and a great opportunity just to see how the season plays out here in Bahrain, and maybe a little bit about what's going on here. There's a lot of standing and looking at things.
We're going to give a quick rundown with just under 4 minutes left this session. Top 5 in Hypercar. Peugeot's number 93 car, Nico Müller at the wheel of that car, 149.443. The 83 AF Corsa Ferrari, that's the bright yellow car, of course, the privately entered car. Robert Kubica at the wheel of that car. He's just about 0.2 of a second back. The Lamborghini still sits third in this session, the 63 car. Impressive stuff from Danny Kvyat earlier in the session. Around half a second back from the fastest time of this session. It's the second Peugeot, fourth quickest. It's the first of the two car teams have both cars there. Fourth, Stoffel van Dorn, just over 150 and just under 0.6 off. And then it's another make, Alpine, fifth quickest, and heading to the Alpines, fifth and sixth. Sharma Lacey at the moment, the 36 car, a 150.612. In LMGT3, it is the top, if we get this right, the top 8 cars are all different makes in this session. The only outlier is both the BMWs, which are at the bottom of the times. But the session is headed, as you watch the 51 Ferrari coming around at pace, by the Mansai Pure Racing Porsche, with Joel Sturm there, a 203.987, the only car on a 204. Then it's the 78 Lexus, the 55 Ferrari, the 27 Aston Martin, the 82 TF Sport Corvette, the number 60 Iron Lynx Lamborghini, and then the number 95 United Autosports McLaren, and the 88 Mustang complete the top 8, and 8 out of our 9 manufacturers. That's stellar stuff. Under 2.5 minutes to go. It's the Proton competition number 99 Porsche there. Just going by one of the two Acodius ASP Lexus.
Now there's a car we haven't talked about in this session, but there is a car that has produced, should have won at Spa, very probably might have won at Spa, apart from a couple of little incidents, but a car that has produced some really fantastic pace this season. What's the plan going forward with that car, do you know?
I think it's a bit of a hashtag wait and see. We already know the plans for it has to be said, the standout talent in that car at Spa. Julian Anlauer elevated to the Porsche Penske Motorsport crew for 2025, and is, I have to tell you, a brilliant, utterly delighted, and correctly so. What a talent he is.
Yeah, very technical at the wheel of that car as we approach 9, slow it down into 10. Wait for it, and then crank the lock on over that curve on the inside. The car rides it pretty well, actually. And then you're looking for the traction element of the package that you have on the exit. We now look at the 35 Alpine, heading through a slightly faster section of the track. Medium speed corner, through turn 12 he goes. And then into his Chatin at the wheel of this one. 13, you've got a bit of a tailwind as you go through the corner. And that's down in the Alpine garage with Nico Lapierre nodding away and looking at all of this, the rack of the telemetry in front of you as well.
Philippe Signo sitting there on the sofa, the man whose senior tech team has put this all together, and there's a real father-son relationship there, you sense, isn't there, between him and Nico Lapierre. They've had so much emotional success together and so much emotion in motor racing. It's great to see that Lapierre is part of that.
20 seconds to go. One other quick point about Senior Tech. Alpine now taking an ownership stake in that team. That's a marker for the plans they've got for the future. 10 seconds to go in this session. No major changes happening in terms of the times. What have we learned?
Well, we learned that, Peugeot topped the times in FP1 when everyone was on new tyres, obviously, to start that one. They've topped the times again when most of the field were running a brand new set of medium tyres to start this session. Yes, yesterday they had a bit of a wobble when they were on the harder tyre and they were older tyres, and it was a bit of more of a unpredictable session in terms of how teams were using their tyres. You only have 3 sets, don't forget, for the 3 practice sessions. So yeah, now this for me, it seems like it's been more of a fair fight, and they seem to have genuine speed.
They were pretty convincing here, remember, with the old car in their first season, before what was then their bugbear, which was the gearbox actuator, wasn't it? So the early iteration of that. Jean-Marc Finot clearly enjoying the sight of seeing his car at the top of the timing and scoring screens, and this is a team that could do with some headlines.
Really could, and you know, if you end the season well, it makes the winter a whole lot more acceptable, doesn't it? And all the drivers have been at pains to point out how hard the crew are working, and that's what it takes. You know, nobody is going to turn up here with a world-beating car. That's not how the rule set works. Everybody is turning up with a car that's got the same potential. It's unlocking that potential and keeping it on the boil that's the key. And Anthony, Peugeot need to have that key in their hands to make this car really fly.
Well, yeah, I remember watching this car even just last year when they were already well into their program, and the car was bouncing around over the bumps, the porpoising away, that we're all very familiar with that term now, after the troubles that the F1 cars suffered in 2022 when they went towards more ground effects, and that's where this car sits. A lot of the hypercars, for that matter, are ground effect cars. You know, that's why they started their program with no rear wing. Now they've got a very little rear wing like the rest of the teams, is because a lot of their grip is coming from the floor, and it was bouncing around a lot. It doesn't seem to be that way anymore.
Miguel, you seem to be in great form. The car seems to be okay. Yesterday in FP2, maybe not so good, but I thought you were working on the car setup for the race. Is that correct? And how do you feel now?
Yeah, it's obviously just practice. You see, we were quick in FP1, not in FP2, then we're quick again now. So I think it's all about when you use your new tires. The tire deck here is brutal, and it's also why it's just 1 or 2 laps on tires, and the rest is just setup work for the race. It's all effort goes into the race. It's one of the longer races, 8 hours, so all focus on the race.
Okay, well, good luck in having a good start. Looks good.
Thank you.
He's absolutely right. You know, we get excited by the headline times and qualifying. Yeah, it is important. It has its importance. Even in an endurance race of 8 hours, it's going to be here. But he's absolutely right. It's all about the race pace and how you manage them through those 8 hours. And yeah, you've only got 26 individual tyres to get you through 8 hours on a track that is really punishing in degradation. That's where they've been doing their homework here. He said, yeah, we're quick, but the most important thing is making sure we have a car that's set up for the race. And if we have to even sacrifice qualifying performance for that, we're going to do it along with every other team out there.
Just going to give you one of the visual cue we saw from that interview with Bruce Rani. I've not seen Mikkel Jensen smile much this year. That was a big broad smile at your man's face. That is great to see. That shows that something's going right in that garage, because it's been a tough year to this point.
Well, it hasn't been a tough year so far for Andre Lotterer. This is his last race with Porsche Penske Motorsport. He will be separating from them. Whether he's back in Hypercar next year, I can't imagine he won't be. I think probably the question is more likely, where will he return? It would be a poorer championship without him in it. Nico Müller, the man who brought the Peugeot in at the end, 93 on top of the times, ahead of the AF Corsa, Ferrari and Lamborghini, with Alpine both in the top 6. The 50 Ferrari, that's a big question mark. Those guys are second in the championship. They are the Le Mans winners. In LMGT3, Manthey Pure Racing from Codis ASP and Vista AF Corsa, the 55 car, and then Harter Racing, TF Sport and Iron Lynx rounding out the top half dozen. Again, BMW at the bottom of the pile in this session, but don't expect them to be off the pace when it comes to qualifying. And qualifying will start at 1600 local, so that's 1300 GMT, and we'll be on 10 minutes before that. So 1550 local, which is 1250 GMT, 1350 if you are adjusting your clocks to CET. Everything possible, I think. It's very hard to pick a front runner here, guaranteed. You expect the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport 963 to be among those front runners, but they don't have to win, and that is a very comfortable place to be.
Yeah, but they've got to finish.
Yes.
And they've got to finish well, or reasonably well. They can't afford to be overly conservative. I think this could be a hell of a race. Everything's on the table here. We talked about BMW, we talked about Alpine and their coming form, and we know where the form cars are beyond that. The ingredients are coming together here for something that could be quite special over a distance they're not that practiced with.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it seems like a formality, doesn't it, that Porsche have to go through with Car 6 in particular to clinch that Drivers' Championship. But it's never as easy as that. It's and when you come out of a race with a different mindset, with that mindset of all we've got to do is survive, somehow it seems to be even harder to do just that. And when you're on the defensive and consolidating your position, that's when people see you as the weak one in the pack. From my own experience, they see you as the weak one, and they know that they can just lunge down the inside. You're going to get out of the way, and then you get marbles on your tyres, and you start to get into more trouble, and then something goes wrong with the car. And it just always seems to be that way. But who knows? They might win the race by a country mile and have the easiest weekend of the season. But from my experience, it never really seems to go that way when you're in this position.
Well, let's catch up with a man who potentially finishes his Porsche career here this weekend. Back with old friend Louise Beckett.
Andre Lostra, number 6 Porsche. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but it's a big weekend ahead.
Definitely a big weekend, but nothing different than the usual job, you know. We come here to race, drive the car as fast as we can, make no mistakes. I think we've shown this year that we can do a solid job in any kind of situation, and yeah, that's the focus, you know, focus on the job, and we see what happens. Yeah, obviously, you know, there's a championship to win, so it's not just any race. But again, yeah, we just focus on the job, try to optimize everything.
Tunnel vision.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank you.
And Anthony, he's echoing exactly what you said. Doing your normal stuff, being aggressive, attacking all the time. Attack is always the best form of defence, and they have to go for it. They can't be stupid, but they're not a stupid driver lineup. They have been the dominant force all season. I mean, that man with Marcel Fassler won 10 of the first 26 races in the World Endurance Championship, and he has not given up the hope of winning more this season and in the future as well.
It's easy for us to say, and for him to say as well, just got to carry on doing the same thing we've done all season. How hard can it be? But it is hard. You're up against such tight competition, and you've got new rivals up there as well, chomping at the bit, like Peugeot, that are desperate to have a good performance, whether it's just in qualifying, but particularly the race. They want to have a race win. Toyota, we see Sebastian Buemi there with David Fleury. It's, you know, they want to win again. They want to reassert themselves as the best in the business. And, you know, it's not going to be easy just for Car 6 to rock up and do what they usually do, because it's tough what they usually do.
Where would you think they'll want to be in qualification? They want to be at the front of the pack into turn 1, where things could go very well or very badly, or would they prefer to be at the back of the pack and try to avoid the carnage ahead?
I think, yeah, like Martin was saying, best form of defence is attack and lead the way from the front. That's really where you want to be. You can brake as late as you want when you're in the lead, barreling down towards turn 1. You don't want to really be in the mix of the melee of the action as you head towards that corner. And like I say, with people with absolutely nothing to lose. The Alpines out there, they want to win. The Peugeots, the Toyota, nothing to car number 8 in particular that aren't in the fight for the championship, and they're going to make your life tough.
That's the standings at the end of free practice 3. 60 minutes around this fabulous circuit here in Bahrain. 149.443 from Yes, the 93 Peugeot ahead of the 83, the privateer F Corsa Ferrari. 63 Lamborghini on Lynx, another surprise appearance there in the top 3. Then the second Peugeot, both Alpines, then the 2 Ferraris, including the 50 car that missed much of the session. Hertz Team Cota, another back-to-back there before the first Totas, 11th quickest only. LMGT3, it's a blanket over absolutely everybody. And let's go to the championship winning crew down in pit lane at the moment with Bruce Schwani, and he's with Klaus Bachler, the pro that's been at the wheel all year.
Fastest in GT3 was the 92 Porsche, and Klaus Bachler is hot out there, we were just saying.
Yeah, it's for sure Bahrain is always warm conditions. And it's quite tough because we have everybody has a lot of tire tech here, so it's not only the temperature, it's the driving which is making it a bit hard work, but really cool, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Bruce is down at Iron Lynx as well.
Matthias, how was it out there just now? Are you happy with the performance so far in the free practice, and what do you expect for qualifying?
Well, first of all, not easy at all. On this track, it's always a big challenge, you know, to survive. The tire degradation here is huge. So, despite the feeling it's not the best inside of the car, we prove again quite a good consistency over FP3. So, which is promising for tomorrow's race. As I said, you know, we are happy about our performance, but the feeling of the driver inside, it's very complicated because we are sliding basically everywhere, so it's difficult to put the power down because the rear it's completely snapping away. But no, I mean, pretty happy, and there's going to be a very interesting race and challenging.
Okay, good afternoon, and well, I mean, good luck for this afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good luck. Matteo Cairoli, famous Porsche exponent, joining Iron Lynx's Lamborghini crew. So that is it for final free practice. Qualifying is up next, 1600 local, 1300 GMT will be on 10 minutes beforehand. So 15:50 local, 12:50 GMT. Until then, from Bruce and Louise in the pit lane, from Graham and Anthony here, and the whole of the WEC TV crew, Martin Haven saying thanks for joining us. We'll see you for qualifying. Bye for now.